it's Ma and me, and we're back for another episode, Bridging the Gap of Communication Between Generations, for our next little tidbit that we are sharing and passing forward and encouraging other families and friends to communicate and ask people questions and learn about each other so we better understand where we're all coming from and we can actually give the support that's needed and be there for each other. So today we decided that we would talk about parental influences as children. So my ma has a very interesting background as a child. And she had both a preacher man and a mortician as fathers. So how do you feel that that has affected you as a person? And maybe how that's transferred as a mother to a daughter and your children?
Well, we get what we get when we're born. And I was adopted. And so during the World War II, and my adoptive mother and father, the father went to war, came home, and was trained as a mortician, which my mother had no idea he was going to train for that. So,
well, you don't go, wow, I'm going to be a mortician. I don't know, maybe
I don't know. I really don't
know
know why he chose it, but it turns out he was a good one, and so
it's needed.
It is needed and all that. And when I was a really small child, I lived near the mortuary, next door to the church. So my mother became very ill, and she separated from, I called him Daddy Boy. He was a really loving person, and married someone else who happened to be the minister of the church next door.
The wife, right?
Yeah, well, my mother married the minister. And
okay. Oh, right, yes.
And
yes.
Daddy Boy married the minister's wife.
Right.
So
we had a mess.
A really interesting childhood.
Yeah.
So anyway,
you had all your areas covered.
It was very
between
strange.
The preacher and the graveyard.
It was very, very strange. And my father was trained at Princeton as let's call him Roland. He was trained at Princeton as a minister. He was Presbyterian. He had a church, but he became.
I didn't know he went to Princeton.
Yeah, he graduated.
I learned that.
And he went there on a scholarship.
Wow.
He worked his way through Princeton University.
When did he have a stroke?
He had a stroke just as World War II was starting.
As a child?
No, as a young adult.
Yeah.
And he couldn't speak. So he couldn't go.
The thing he's most famous for.
So he was unable to. He was going to be a chaplain in the armed forces, and then they wouldn't take him. So he stayed on the farm and just worked on it, and he got himself a church. And as we were growing up, we would visit Daddy Boy and his wife Mary.
Did they all hang out together?
No, they were cordial. But we would be sent there for a week every year, and they lived above the mortuary. So you would be sleeping with somebody in a casket downstairs.
Didn't you say there were like drapes and things and the tools hanging?
We weren't allowed in the room that he used for preparation.
I would hope
but we occasionally strayed in there.
Oh no.
And it was pretty scary.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had that. Plus, then we'd go home, and I had a very strict, conservative father who...
He had a bunker.
Yeah, he had a...
Yeah.
Yes, he had a bunker.
People are like, we prepare. I'm like, you have no idea about preparing.
My mother...
We had first class preparation.
Yeah, it was wherever he went that he could build a bunker, he did. And it was because during this World War II thing and the atom bomb.
Sure.
And they thought people were going to get bombed. So we had
the real thing. That's so cool.
And it was pretty scary.
Well, true. That's true.
But anyway, he had very high ideals.
Yeah.
And, you know, you didn't, heaven help you if you dated somebody. I mean, we would drive home from our dates, and you could see my father peeking through the window, staring at us and sitting in the car. You know, it didn't make for romantic moments. So I had a very interesting childhood because of divorce. At the time this happened to me, you didn't talk about it. It was frowned upon.
Yeah.
I became later in life, I worked in a library, and I had kids of all ages. So I started asking children one time, how many people here are from divorced families? And I thought maybe one or two would raise their hand, you know. Half the class raised their hand.
Mm-hmm.
So there's much more of that today than there was then. People talk about it openly. The children talked about
it
openly about how hard it was for them. It really is hard for children to go through that. They have to suddenly switch from one group to another group. It leaves you kind of a lost feeling where you're not really sure where you belong.
That's interesting.
So, but anyway, what about you in your childhood?
Well, but how did that affect you? I'll get to me, but
well, it just makes you feel a little uncertain of things. Well, and I'm already a scaredy cat, so I just wanted, and then I ended up getting divorced. So, you know, it's just really, I had a very good marriage with Angela's father for 48 years. I was lucky to have that, but it's something that's common, and we need to realize that it's hard on the kids. It's really hard on the kids.
Right. Well, how did it change your parenting style, do you think?
Well, I made really, 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 really sure that I spent time with the kids. Not that we talked about it, but I spent made sure that they knew that I was going to be there. Because that's what I was. I didn't know who was going to show up.
Right.
So I purposefully made sure that if I had to pick them up, I was on time. If I needed to do something, I did it, and that we did things together. We read books together. So that they would know that they had a safe...
You didn't read books with me.
I know.
What happened?
I don't know. Maybe you didn't want to read books.
I did.
You did? Oh, would you like me to read to you? How about Little Women, my favorite book?
Maybe. We could do it.
So, anyway...
you mean with the boys?
With the boys, because I had 2 boys.
Right.
And so, anyway, it's a common thing that's between generations, and it can make a big difference.
Right, and there can be a lot of trauma if parents don't get along, or you feel like the child thinks it's their fault, or things happen because the parents can't keep track of the children, and things happen, and
that happened to us.
A lot of trauma can happen, and then you don't even know it's happened, and then they live their whole lives with a whole bunch of trauma.
Right.
So, I mean, those things maybe you have to get professional help to talk about, maybe, but it's definitely something to talk with generations and open up about, and make sure people can talk with each other about what's going on, so it doesn't translate into making decisions in life that maybe aren't the best decisions because it's based out of trauma, not out of, being healthy.
Reaction to things.
Reaction instead of responding.
Right.
Well, I didn't have as exciting of as in regards to that. I mean, I didn't have a preacher man and a mortician. I can't come up with anything to compete for that.
Well, it is rather an opposite.
It's interesting though that you spent extra time with the boys. That makes sense to me because that actually is what sort of occurred, and so I translate that as something different since I'm one of the girls.
Well,
but
you had a sister that was handicapped.
Yeah, I don't know. I just had a very interesting background, but everybody does. I do know the bottom line is, Dad worked with hardwoods. And I love the sound of a saw. I love power tools going on in the background because my bedroom wall was next to all the sawing and sanding. And he'd come home at night and work in the wood shop. And there's like something about that meant that he was home. So it's very comforting to me to hear
Well, that's
power
interesting.
saws.
Saws being comforting.
And the smell of like sanded wood, and I love wood. I love the smell of it. And,
so do I.
yeah, so I have that, and but I think that's interesting. I think it's important then in regards to just divorce or split families, blended families. Everybody needs to talk, right? It doesn't matter what family you're from, but if you're all together in one container, then it's important to communicate.
It is, and you find after a while if you have two opposites, because Daddy Boy was from Alabama, and he had all the southern traits of a southern man, which was very different than Roland, who was born in Oregon and was a minister.
Right, yeah, they were very different.
They were very different, and it would come out sometimes about something you were doing that one or the other of them really didn't like. So you sort of kept things to yourself a little bit.
But this is, we're encouraging folks to talk about stuff.
Right.
Understanding. It doesn't mean we have to agree with everything, but just understanding each other and reaching out and speaking to everyone that you love and videoing it, making a record of it so your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, you can pass these things on first person. I think it's really important, don't you?
I do. I really do.
Yeah. So, well, I still have her. We're still here.
Who knows what's in it? But
we're here, and she's looking good.
Yep.
Yeah. So we appreciate you guys checking in with us, and we're checking in on you. And be sure to keep, subscribe. We'll keep putting out videos as long as we can, trying to encourage people. And I'm putting together some resources, some questions people can ask their family. They'll be putting on the website, thehealthtuneup.com. And we're working on that right now. But until next time, reach out to your loved ones and ask them some questions. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.